Hey guys, welcome to the complete beginner guide to Brawl Stars. This is particularly geared towards people that are brand new to the game. Hey, you call me a noob? No. You think I suck at Brawl Stars, don't you? No, I never said that you suck at Brawl Stars. I see. You think you're better than me, huh? You think I couldn't figure it out all on my own? I mean, you could have figured it out. It's just that I've played Brawl Stars for countless hours and have an expert explanation on all the mechanics of the game, so I just figured I could save you some time. Oh, I see. Okay. So, what you're saying is you're trying to save me time. Well, I can back that. Hello, fellow brawlers. I'm Kairos Time, and, sorry. It's time to brawl. Welcome to the complete beginner guide to Brawl Stars, okay? So for today's video, we're going to mostly focus on tips to help you hit the ground running when you first pick up Brawl Stars and get into the game. Now, if you do have a friend that is a new player to the game, make sure you go ahead and send them this video so that they can learn from it as well. I also have some fantastic other guides for more experienced players. But that being said, if you are experienced, I want you to think of the best tip that you can think of for a new Brawl Stars player, and go ahead and put that in the comment section below and like your favorite tips, so that anybody that's new to Brawl Stars can go ahead and read through that comment section right there and instantly become better at Brawl Stars. Okay guys, so for today's video, we are going to go ahead and do two main things. The first thing is we're going to go ahead and give you a quick pro explanation of the various mechanics of battle in Brawl Stars so that you can definitely improve your game right as soon as you pick up your next match. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to play with and how to play against the first 6 brawlers in the game so that you have an advantage over the people that you're playing with. Okay guys, now the first mechanic we're going to talk about is Quickfire versus aiming. Okay, so when you are playing in Brawl Stars, you got your left thumb and you're using that joystick to move around, right? And then you have your right thumb and you're using that to aim. And there's 2 ways you can do that. First of all, you can actually just tap the right side of the screen, and every time you tap, your brawler will actually automatically shoot in the direction of the nearest enemy brawler when you tapped that screen. This is actually called Quickfire, and it is a great way for new players to jump into the game head start and learn kind of like the general gameplay mechanics without having to really focus on aiming. Now, there is one thing I do want to mention though: do not just tap when nobody is there or if nobody's in range or anything like that, because you actually have ammo and that will waste some of your shots, and you do not want to do that. Okay, now this Quickfire is actually relatively easy for you to use, and it's actually pretty effective against new players who don't move around. Now, when you're very first starting out with the game, I actually recommend using this method of firing a lot while you're just kind of learning the general mechanics of the game and figuring things out. For some brawlers, it's actually even the most effective way to play that brawler the majority of the time. But that being said, as you do gain more experience in the game and you kind of progress a little bit further, you're definitely going to want to learn how to manually aim all of your shots, because that is the best way for you to play most of the brawler. Now, to manually aim, all you have to do is you got to press your thumb right on there. You got to swipe it a little bit, and that'll kind of like activate that second joystick, and then you use that to aim in the direction that you want to fire, and when you let go, that is when that brawler will actually release their shot. And for most brawlers, this is actually the preferred way for you to aim their shots. But like I said, it does take some practice, and the better you are at it, the better you're going to become at Brawl Stars. But if you're not used to 2 joysticks at first, don't worry about manually aiming or anything like that until you get more experience with the game. There are actually plenty of brawlers that are really great options just to use Quickfire, and you get quite a few of them right at the very beginning of the game as well. The next mechanic we're going to talk about is ammo. Okay, so your brawlers, even though they have unlimited amounts of ammo, theoretically, they only are able to use 3 shots at a time, represented by the orange bars above your brawler's head. When you're not firing, you actually slowly reload those shots. And there are some brawlers that reload really fast, and that means you can basically just spam their shots. And then there are some brawlers that reload really slowly, and they are very beneficial shots, but every shot really counts because of the slow reload speed. And when you're first picking up the game, I highly recommend that you start to get an awareness of how much ammo you have. Okay, so one tip that I actually recommend is to save your shots so that you always have 2 shots available or 3 shots available. Okay, so you wait till that fills up before you land off a shot, and then you throw it off. And the reason why I recommend doing that is because then when time calls for it, when you really need those extra shots to be able to blast your opponent, then you have all 3 shots available. You can just run in there, shoot them, take them down, and then run back while you reload. In fact, getting into this type of a pattern where you go in, you land all your shots, then you fall back is one of the best ways that you can actually up your skill in game, even if you've been playing for a while. Now, once you're actually really good at paying attention to how much ammo you have and like preventing yourself from just spamming those shots and being really conscientious about that, you can actually start focusing on paying attention to how much ammo the enemy brawler actually has. Now, you can't actually see how much ammo they have, but you know that they are limited by those 3 shots just like you are. So if you have been saving up your shots and you see an enemy that's actually just spamming shot after shot after shot, all you have to do is wait until they spam those 3 shots, and if you have relatively good amount of health available, then you can go in and quickly throw off your 3 shots and only maybe be able to get 1 shot off in that time. This gives you a huge advantage, and a lot of times it means you're able to take somebody out without them taking you out, which gives you a huge advantage in battle in Brawl Stars. The next mechanic we're going to talk about is your Brawler's Super. Every brawler has a special unique ability that they can use to really turn the tide of battle in either dire circumstances or to really give your team an advantage, okay? Now you might call this an ultimate, but in Brawl Stars it's called a super. Now, rather than your super charging over a period of time, it actually charges based off of how many shots you've actually landed on an enemy brawler. There are some brawlers that have supers that charge up really quickly, and they can just basically like use their super like it doesn't even matter. And then there are some brawlers that really take a lot of time to build up their super, and those brawlers typically tend to be the brawlers that have a super that can really change the tide of the game. And once your super is charged, you can use it one of the same 2 ways that you do your regular attack. Okay, you can just tap it and it will automatically use it, or you can actually use it like a joystick. You just push your thumb on that, move it around however you want to aim it, and then let go, and it will release it in that same direction. Now, one quick tip: if you do try to aim your super, you're aiming it and you're like ready to go, but then you're like, oh, I actually don't want to use it. All you have to do to release that without using your super is you drag it back to the middle of the joystick and then you let go, and that super will not be fired. Now, another tip that I have is that you can actually see who has a super charged up if you see a spinning ring around them. Okay, so a blue or a red means that they have it charged up, and if a ring is yellow, that means that they have their finger on that joystick and they are ready to release it. Now, if they do have the ring or it's glowing yellow, you got to be prepared to try and dodge, okay? Because if you can actually waste their super by making them use it at the wrong time, then that gives you a great advantage. Another tip is that actually dealing damage with your super will indeed recharge it again. So there are a lot of situations where you can actually chain supers by dealing enough damage with one super to be able to use it over and over and over again. Okay, so the next mechanic we're going to talk about is healing, okay? So if you've taken some damage in battle, you can actually fall back and heal rather than just keep brawling until somebody kills you and you have to respawn, okay? It has 2 requirements. First of all, you have to not shoot, and you also have to not take any damage for 3 seconds. And if you do that for 3 seconds, then your brawler will start to heal up. One of the best things that you can do to really improve your game in Brawl Stars is to know when you should fall back and heal up so that you can come back ready, refreshed, and sooner to take an enemy out instead of having to just respawn and wait that period and leave your teammates alone. Now, if you do notice that an enemy player is actually trying to heal up, you can use this to your advantage by applying some pressure and trying to make them land some shots on you. By forcing them to try and shoot off some shots, you actually restart their counter without you having to deal any damage. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but one of my favorite things to do is to pretend like you're going to come around a corner of a wall so that they throw down a shot and restart their counter and waste some ammo, but right before you come around the corner, you actually pull back and then they throw that shot, it restarts their healing, and hopefully you can go back in and take them out. Okay guys, let's go ahead and talk about the first 6 brawlers that you're most likely to unlock and most likely to play against when you're very first starting out in Brawl Stars. Okay, we're going to cover some tips on how to play with them as well as some tips on how to play against them. First, we're going to go ahead and start off with Shelley. Shelley is a medium range brawler with a medium amount of health, and she is a shotgunner. And what that means is she does very little damage from a distance, but tons and tons of damage if she gets close up on an enemy brawler. Her super is a huge shotgun blast that can actually break through walls and reaches further than her regular shot. Once again, her super really does not do very much damage from a distance, but if she can get close up on you, she does an insane amount of damage with that super. Now, Shelly's the first brawler that you unlock, and once you know the one secret to playing her right, she is super powerful. Now, that tip with Shelley is that you want to try and get as close to an enemy brawler before unloading your shots, okay? You You might use one shot from a distance to deal a little bit of damage, maybe keep them back and things like that. But then what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you can try and get as close as possible before unloading all of your shots, because she really doesn't do very much damage from a distance. One of the great things about Shelley is that she is fantastic to use for Quickfire, okay? If you use Quickfire, it will shoot directly where the enemy player is and do massive amounts of damage, especially if you're right up close, because all of her shells will actually hit them. And because of this, when you're actually playing against a Shelley, the big trick is to really try and keep her away from you, okay? So if she starts walking towards you, fall back and fire at her until she backs off. Now, another tip that I have regarding Shelley is to be aware of bushes, okay? Shelley loves to get into those bushes and try to use them to try and get close to you, okay? If you don't know if a bush has an enemy Shelley in there and you don't know where the enemy Shelley is, treat that bush like there's a Shelley in there. Maybe you throw off a couple of shots and scan it to make sure that there isn't a Shelley in there waiting to blast your face off. The next brawler we're going to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and that is Nita. Nita has a medium range, a medium amount of health. She's kind of like a pseudo tank, and she sends out a shockwave that deals damage in an area. Now, her attack doesn't deal a ton of damage in comparison to some other brawlers, but it's pretty consistent, and her consistent HP allows her to really use that to her advantage, and her attack will actually damage multiple brawlers if they are all caught within that shockwave. For her super, she summons a bear that will slowly chase down the nearest enemy brawler and swipe at their faces. The bear does a really great job at pushing enemy brawlers back, which is why Nita does such a good job on gem grab, where map control really is the key to success. Nita is probably the most well-rounded brawler that you're going to first unlock, and she's definitely one of my favorites in the game. The trick to playing Nita is to really try and play it safe while you try and charge up your super, so that you can then use that bear to go on the offense and kind of push people back. One suggestion I have is to try and place the bear behind enemy brawlers so that it puts them into a difficult situation where they can't run away without getting taken out, or to use the bear to try and corner an enemy and kind of surround them to try and take them out. Because of Nita's really wide shots, most of the time you're actually pretty fine just using Quickfire with Nita, so that's one reason why it really makes her a great brawler to first start out with. Now, when you're playing against an enemy Nita, my biggest suggestion is try to avoid taking as much damage from her as you possibly can. That sounds kind of like obvious, but the reason why is you do not want her to charge up her super, and so by avoiding her shots, it's going to be more difficult for her to charge up her super, and there are actually some times when you can go the majority of the match without her getting a bear out at all, and that puts you guys in a really good situation. It honestly makes her look a little bit more like a teddy bear than a wild, ferocious animal. Up next, we're going to go ahead and talk about Colt. Colt's range isn't the longest in the game, but it is pretty long, and on top of that, he has low health. He shoots out with 2 pistols in a straight line, and that deals insane amounts of damage if all of his shots actually hit an enemy brawler. Now, Colt's super is very similar to his regular attacks, except that it can shoot longer, it can shoot a little bit wider, it can break through walls, and it has twice as many bullets, giving you the opportunity to deal twice as much damage. Colt deals more damage per second consistently than most brawlers in the game, but he is one of the harder ones to master, okay? So my tip with him is to learn how to lead your shots, and what I mean by that is shoot where enemy brawlers are walking instead of where they are at. This does require manual aiming to make him really successful. You can definitely still try to use Quickfire, especially if enemy brawlers aren't really like dodging or moving or anything like that, or if they're really close to you. But if you really want to get great with Colt, you're definitely going to want to start to learn how to aim your shots. And when you're playing against Colt, my best suggestion is for you to really focus on dodging, okay? His long range makes it really difficult for you to get close up to him, but if he misses, you're set. The best way for you to do this is if he is shooting this direction, you walk this direction, or this direction. You walk perpendicular to his shots so that if he is using Quickfire, he'll shoot where you were instead of where you are and deal no damage at all. If you're able to get close enough to him to be able to deal some damage, his low health will allow you to quickly take him out. Up next, we have Primo, who has a very short range, but has one of the highest healths in the game. On top of that, he does move slightly faster than all brawlers. It doesn't make a huge difference in most circumstances, but every now and then he is able to catch up to people because of it. El Primo's regular attack is where he throws out 4 quick punches, and he has a really fast reload speed, so he's able to use that very, very frequently. He deals an insane amount of damage if he's able to get close enough to an enemy brawler to make them hit. Now for El Primo's super, El Primo jumps into the air and comes down with a body slam right down at a target location, dealing a decent amount of damage and knocking brawlers back. If he lands on terrain, he'll even break that terrain. I don't know if it's because he's really muscular or if he's just really heavy. El Primo is one of the easiest brawlers to pick up, and at the very beginning of the game, he can actually feel pretty overpowered, but he is one of the hardest to use in competitive gameplay. The trick to playing El Primo is to really focus on doing anything you can to try and get close to enemy brawlers without taking too much damage. That oftentimes comes down to having to use bushes, really focusing on dodging shots, and one of the best suggestions that I have is that if you are able to charge up his super, rather than using his super for extra damage, use it as a way to get close to enemy brawlers later on once you have charged up your HP. If you're looking for a brawler that is really great to use to just spam Quickfire with, then El Primo really is a great brawler if you're able to get close to an enemy brawler. Very top tier competitive players will still aim instead with El Primo, but most of the time you're just fine spamming shots with him. My suggestion to playing against an enemy El Primo is to back off. If you see him coming your way and he still has plenty of HP, fall back, try and deal as much damage as you can and try and make him push back. Use your distance away from him as an advantage, and if you do that, it's going to be very difficult for him to even stand a chance because he won't be able to get close to you. Up next we have Barley, who has a long range and very low health. He throws bottles of poisonous alcohol that splashes onto the ground and deals damage to a specific area. His super is where he throws 5 bottles of a really toxic brew, and that does insane amount of damage to anyone that is caught in the mess. Now as a thrower, Barley actually takes a lot of practice to master, but if you can master him, he's an absolutely amazing brawler for controlling the field, and he really is a ton of fun. Barley does really well when he has walls to protect him, and he does pretty poorly when he does not have walls or distance to protect him from enemy brawlers. Now as a brawler with really low health, he's actually really better off just kind of like supporting friendly brawlers from a distance than really being in the middle of the action. Barley is one of those brawlers that you should honestly basically never use Quickfire with. It's much worse than manual aiming in almost every single circumstance. And when you are playing against an enemy Barley, this is actually something that you can use to your advantage, especially if you see somebody just using Quickfire rather than aiming their shots. All you have to do is charge directly towards that Barley, and if he is using Quickfire, all of his shots will land behind you and you can just get right up on him and take him out. Throwers tend to do pretty poorly really close up to them because it's really difficult for you to aim shots super close to you as a thrower, and so you want to do anything that you can do to try and close the gap between them. And on top of that, if you can get rid of their protection by taking out walls that they typically hide behind or something like that, that's a really great way to really render a thrower useless. Up next, guys, we're going to go and talk about Poco. Poco has a medium range and a medium amount of health. For his attack, he strums his poorly tuned guitar and sends out a wave of painful sound that deals damage to anyone that can hear it. I mean, it must sound awful if it deals damage, right? But he can play the guitar. For his super, he plays his guitar in a much more pleasant manner, which creates a much larger wave of sound that will heal himself and teammates that can hear it. And another interesting thing is his super will actually travel through walls, so you can heal a friendly brawler that's like behind the opposite wall. Poco is a really great brawler for you to learn when you're very first starting to pick up the game. He doesn't deal as much damage as other brawlers, but his ability to use his super to burst heal himself and teammates is really what makes Poco great. My tip for playing Poco is to wait for enemy brawlers to like waste their ammo and then go in and quickly throw off those 3 attacks and then fall back. Poco's attack just does a really nice spread, and that means that he's really great to use Quickfire with, especially when you're very first learning the game, but I really do recommend learning to manually aim his super so that you can heal teammates in those situations that they need it. I have 2 tricks of playing against an enemy Poco. The first thing is to be aware of when he has his super charged up. If he has his super ready to go, don't expect to be able to go in and take him out, okay? He's going to use it, he's going to heal up, and it's basically like having to take out 2 Pocos. Instead, deal a little bit of damage, put some pressure on him, then once he uses his super, then you can go in and try and take him out after that. Poco does really well in long fights where he's able to slowly build up his super and then use it to heal himself when he really needs to. And so my other tip to trying to take out a Poco is to try and take him out in very, very short and quick fights where you just go in and blast each other and you take him out because he doesn't deal a ton of damage by himself. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. The next video in the Brawl Stars guide is a complete explanation of the progression system in Brawl Stars, and it comes with the quickest way to max your account for both free-to-play players and gemmers alike. So guys, make sure you go ahead and check that out next, and of course put a comment in the section below if you want me to do the rest of the Brawlers as well. Don't forget to subscribe for more Brawl Stars guides, entertaining Let's Plays, and of course my Brawler tier list. For now, this is Kairos Time ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.